Companies are key to solving climate change. That is why WWF is working with the companies in our Climate Business Network to reduce their emissions and secure a future where people and nature thrive. Our Beyond Net Zero roadmap lays out the path for companies to follow. It aims to help them achieve their targets and go beyond by taking meaningful action and helping to restore our planet's natural systems. We don't just tell you what to do, we show you how to do it. Beyond Net Zero includes 7 key leadership actions. Each action has the metrics you should use, the processes you should follow, and some examples of best practice you could include. Our partners are part of a growing group of companies that have clearly understood the science, the benefits of cutting emissions, and the risks of inaction. We think other companies could learn a lot from their example. In this video, we'll be going into detail on the 5th leadership action laid out in the Beyond Net Zero report. We will be talking to Andreas Ahrens and Charlotte Glassco of the IKEA Group about their work on policy engagement. Let's hear from them now on what IKEA is doing on this topic.
We are taking quite a lot of action on many levels when it comes to policy engagement. I think maybe our biggest target right now is the EU Green Deal, Fit for 55. Because Europe is our biggest market, and it's very bold and ambitious goals here as well. So here we are actively engaging both on what is the emission reduction goal, but also how to stimulate renewable energy, energy efficiency. What does it mean from carbon removing and storing carbon, as well as also, legislation on product. Climate footprint on product level and how to communicate to customers as well.
We've seen the EU take a lot of very impressive action over the past few years in this Commission mandate to set some really precedent-setting legislative goals. And we've been super supportive of the Green Deal and the Fit for 55 package. But what we often find that our contribution is where we're most meaningful is when we bring facts to the table and to help politicians find the right methods to legislate. Because whatever is legislated now needs to be possible to implement and possible to enforce as well. So if we don't succeed now, then when it comes to that implementation stage, we won't get another chance to fix things. So for us, we lead often with facts. It's a slogan we like to bring to all of our policy engagement. And I think we'll continue to do that as we see some of this climate legislation get even more tangible in the coming years when it comes to that implementation stage.
Due to the urgency of the climate crisis, companies must provide clear and uncompromising support to ensure positive contributions and incentives. Companies need to act on lobbying practices that are not aligned with the company's own ambitions and narrative. For this, it is important that a company align internal messaging and speaks with one voice throughout the organization. Let's hear from IKEA on how they managed to do this.
So I think overall, what's important how we speak with one voice, and it's not just connected to policy engagement, but overall, it is that we need to have a common narrative. So within climate at IKEA, we have a climate positive narrative. We also have developed joint position statements. And we also have a way of communication to set a certain tone of voice as well. We also have nominated spokesperson on different topics so that we also always lead with facts based on whoever has the highest business impact here as well.
We know that if we want to hit our global targets, we can't afford to wait for action. We need to push the agenda forward on multiple fronts. Even with this in mind, is there a way IKEA prioritizes or chooses what to work on?
A lot is based on our climate positive narrative, but it's very clear for us what it is that we're focusing on to contribute to limit climate change to 1.5 and what is the priority as well. When it comes to all climate agenda, the key is drastic emission reductions across the whole IKEA value chain, and it's free movement. It's driving towards renewable energy, energy efficiency, and electrification. It is how we transform into circular business and stimulate more sustainable consumption. And then thirdly, also to use more materials with a low climate footprint in our IKEA range.
Companies have a large role to play in their respective trade and industry organizations as advocates for positive change. How does a company like IKEA collaborate with these groups to influence change?
Yeah, so at IKEA, togetherness is one of our core values. And, they do say you can go fast alone or further together. And the same applies for when you're trying to influence. So we believe in partnerships and working with partners and the right partners. And as a result, we do work with a few business organizations closely. Some Brussels examples would be Eurocommerce or the European Furniture Industry Confederation. But we also work with NGOs, just like WWF, which is very important to us. And there's also business organizations that can be quite large. And when it comes to those kinds of business organizations, what we find is important is that we share common values. That value alignment is super important because it means that we can all be on the same page when it comes to influencing, when it comes to the messaging we want to bring to Brussels or to policy making around the world. So we find that, so long as we find that value alignment, we can work really well together. And if business associations aren't quite where we'd like them to be, sometimes we can work with them and bring them more towards the direction of travel we'd like to see to make more positive change in policy or positive change in policy making in general. But togetherness is super important. You cannot do anything alone, and partnerships are absolutely integral to how we influence.
We know this can be an easy topic to think ambitiously on, but the practical side of the story can be a lot more challenging. Is there a barrier that you have found in your engagement on this topic?
I mean, there are always many challenges and barriers. It's a tough area to be in, but I think probably one of the biggest challenges is that it can be very easy to set ambitious goals. But if we don't have common standards to measure against those goals, if we don't have common definitions, then the goals don't mean very much. We can't reach them. So going from vision to reality is probably one of the biggest challenges we see today in policymaking. And maybe we even need people to be a little more boring, which means, help us with those technical definitions and terms, help us with testing protocols, help us with common standards, because without those instruments, we can't make the change. We can't reach the goals of some of these new climate ambitions. So that's what we find as one of the biggest challenges today.
What is one of the most important takeaways you would like to share from your learnings working on policy engagement as a company?
So, when it comes to climate policy engagement, there is so much to be done still. We've only really scratched the surface, and we need more businesses to be involved. We need more stakeholders to be involved. We need all the expertise we can get to lead with facts, to lead with expertise, because without a consortium of effort, we will never reach the ultimate goal of 1.5 degrees Celsius, to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. So if there's anything, I would want to recommend to other businesses is to join in, to lean in, and to provide your expertise so that we really can make this climate policy, agenda as strong as it can be and as successful as it can be for the future.
This video showcases how IKEA is delivering on Beyond Net Zero's leadership actions. This is an example of credible action that is in line with what science tells us we need. With the Beyond Net Zero guidance, WWF is showing every business how to step up and become a climate leader by striving to maximize its contribution to limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. We urge your business to commit to net zero and go beyond.